Hi guys, I've got a fun page in my Coffee Pocket Page notebook today, and I'm going to use this cut file. Now, Virginia from Confessions of a Paper Addict obviously knows me too well and knew that this would be the perfect cut file for me, so she sent that over. I've got a couple of photos from a coffee, let's be fair, there's a lot of coffee fixes around here, but this is from a Sunday afternoon coffee fix, which is probably my most favorite ones. So I'm going to put this full page photo at the back, and I was thinking that my cut file is going to go into my pocket because I love doing that, but I'm just not sure what I'm going to back this with. I don't actually want to cover up all of that photo. There's not a lot of photo in there, so I was thinking I'm going to use vellum, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So this is the cut file that I've just cut, and I wasn't sure how I was going to fill it in. At first I thought I might just leave it as an outline on my page, but because it has this separate O piece in the middle, that's going to end up floating, so I need to back it with something, and I don't want to do pattern paper. So what I'm going to do is cut this entire inside piece in vellum, and then it will show through in the pocket to the photo underneath. So I just want to get rid of the outlines and this fixed bit at the bottom, so that it just is one piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab this cut file and release it and ungroup it. Is that going to give me my pieces? That gives me my pieces, and then I'm going to get rid of all of these little internal pieces here, but not because this is still the outline of the actual cut file, even though it's on the inside. So I need those pieces to cut, like these wee bits to show the F. So it's just the inside of the letters that I'm going to delete here. Sorry, and then I need to remove this fix part as well, and I'm just going to do that really simply by just creating a rectangle here. Make it cover as much as I can, and then I'm going to select both of these, the rectangle and the outline, and the modify palette is this one here, and I'm just going to subtract all, and that's going to delete the rectangle part from the main cut file. So you can see here that that leaves all of that, and I'll just zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing here. And then I'm just going to do that one more time, just lining this rectangle up with the bottom of the cut file. And subtracting. Now this extra little piece that I've got down here, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to select that piece and the main cut file and subtract that, and then I can delete this piece here. I can delete my rectangle, and when we zoom back out, I have my entire inside of the cut file that I can go ahead and cut with vellum. I just use the vellum settings in my Silhouette Studio software, and that seems to work all right for me. Vellum's one of those tricky things. It depends on the type of vellum that you're using, so I do suggest testing these cut settings. Just do a little test to make sure that it is right for what you are using, but then I can go ahead and cut that, and then we can back this file. So now that I've got my little vellum backing piece all cut out, I can go through the tedious process of sticking this all down. I'm just going to use my just my glue pen. I'm not adding too much. This is vellum. It is going to show through the glue a little bit, and I could have cut a second cut file to sort of sandwich it, but because it's just vellum, it's only showing through white anyway, so I didn't really worry about that. I'm just using my glue pen to just glue a couple of letters at a time. I figured if I started at one end and glued all the way to the other, one end would be dry before I got to the other end, so I just did a couple of letters at a time and just sort of carefully folded it back. But I really like how that turned out, and it really looks cool over top of my full page photo like that. I'd originally intended for the coffee to go against the sort of outside edge of the page, but I think I'm going to swap it around and have it towards the middle, and then I'm going to add to this to this cut file. So this is sort of going to be my title, Coffee Fix, and what I want it to say is Sunday afternoon coffee fix. So I'm going to do my stamping. I don't often turn the page around like this to do my stamping, but I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to attach my cut file in there at some point, but for now I just want to stamp the rest of my title. I'm going to use one of my favorite alphas. This is the Railway Alpha from Kelly Stamps, and as you can see it is a well-loved and well-worn set, and I'm just going to stamp Sunday afternoon just in black ink as close to that gutter of the book as I can. Some letters are more successful than others, but it's how I wanted it to look. I was sort of guessing at this point that Sunday afternoon was going to fit, and it's about here that I start panicking. Oh, what if it doesn't? Maybe I should have checked, but it does. It does fit. I had a little bit of space left over, so I needn't have worried about trying to squish these letters on so far. It's here that I realized, oh no, I'm easily going to be able to fit it, so the spacing gets a little bit better. But that's how I'm going to have the title. I'm going to do my journaling elsewhere, so this really was just sort of a title for the page. I want to put the cut file sort of down as close to the sort of that gutter as possible, but I do want it to be able to turn nicely, so I don't want to jam the cut file right in there as far as it goes. I just want it to float nicely, and to stop it moving around I'm just going to add a few tiny attacher staples. I thought about running it through my sewing machine, but I'm out of good needles at the moment, so I knew I didn't want to have to mess this up and start again, so a couple of little staples works really nicely. Now my photos are quite dark and kind of boring, but I did like the yellow of my cup, and I wanted to bring some of that yellow onto the other page. So I've got this stencil that's got these coffee beans in it. I'm not sure where that came from. I think it was on the back of a stamp set. I know neither the brand nor where it came from, but I'm going to use that, and I debated about whether to stick my photo down first or not, but that's what I'm going for. I stuck my photo down, and I'm going to use some modeling paste and some ink. I can't remember the name. This is a Color Theory one from Studio Calico, and I've just grabbed an old plastic bag here to be my mixing palette, and I've just stamped the ink down a little bit, and then I'm splopping some modeling paste on top. I never know how much to make, so I err on the side of too much rather than not enough. I don't want to run out. I'd rather have too much. So I probably am mixing up quite a lot for the small amount of stenciling that I'm going to do. It wasn't quite as yellow as I wanted it to be. I was trying to get it as close to the yellow on the cup as I could, so I just added a few more little splops of ink, and then I mixed that in, but it barely made any difference, to be honest. It was at this point that I realized this is probably as yellow as it's going to get, and I should start working with it before it just dries up on my plastic bag. So a whole lot of mixing, and now I can start with the actual stenciling. I'm going to stencil straight onto the page in my notebook, so I'm just adding a little bit of scrap paper underneath to make sure that this modeling paste doesn't go everywhere. And the other thing that I'm trying to achieve is, this is why it looks so awkward, the pattern on the stencil is very sort of gritty, linear, and I didn't want that. I just wanted a few sort of random coffee beans all over the place. So I'm trying to really carefully use this stencil to just fill in the few beans that I want. And it worked pretty good. There are a couple that I do accidentally because I've already smudged some in there, but I guess it just adds to the randomness of it. Now I've lifted my stencil off once, so I am attempting to clean the back of it as much as I can so that when I plonk this down at the top here, it just doesn't yellow goes everywhere. And that kind of worked. Obviously I'm working with yellow modeling paste, so there is a small chance that some is going to leak through. I probably could have gone and cleaned off the stencil each time, but you know me, couldn't be bothered. This messy stuff is hard enough as it is without adding to my process. So I just cleaned it off as good as I can on some scrap paper there, and I don't get too many leak throughs, so I'm just doing the top, and I'm adding a few more at the top. I really only wanted a few little random ones at the bottom, but at the top I'm doing most of them and leaving less, if you get what I mean. Now, before I sort of let this dry too much, I just use my fingers just to wipe the edges of the page, because some of the modeling paste does tend to hang off the edge and get a bit ragged, and once it's dry I don't want it to like rip off the page if it gets caught on something. I decided to try the modeling paste on my photo, so I have no idea how this is going to work out at this point. I'm just adding a few random beans, again trying to do the sort of tidy but random, what do you even call it? It's not really stenciling, but just adding a few here and there. And I figured the worst case scenario was that as it dries it will suck the moisture out of the modeling paste and maybe get a sort of darker ring around them, which, considering it's such a dark photo, I didn't think would be the end of the world. And I did cheat. I didn't let this dry naturally. I went and blasted it under the hairdryer for a little bit, but you can see there's no darker line around it. It actually, it worked really well onto the photo, so that's something to try. Again, I print at home. This is Canon Photo Glossy 2 photo paper, so I have no idea how like a store-bought printed paper would work, but this one worked fine. Now, I haven't dried this completely, but I've dried it enough so that I can add my journaling onto here, and my initial plan was to add the journaling inside my coffee cup. But once I've done the rest of this page, I was a little bit concerned that it would be just a bit too much, especially under that cut file. So I just did some rough journaling on a scrap piece of vellum, and I think it looks fine. In fact, it looks exactly how I wanted it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and just do my journaling directly onto my photo. I did draw way more lines on my photo than I did on my fake vellum journaling, so I'm just winging it as far as how much writing I'm going to go on here. It's the vellum was really just a test. It wasn't an exact copy of what was going to happen. And I'm using a permanent marker. I often use gel pen on my photo, and that works fine too, again because it's that print at home photo paper, it sucks up most inks, but this was just a Staedtler permanent marker and that worked fine too. Now I'm going to glue this in because the modeling paste is roughly dry enough, but I'm definitely not going to close this book up for a little bit. I'm going to hold it open and let it dry, but essentially that is this page all done. I'm super pleased with how this page turned out. I really love that cut file, and I knew I had to use it as soon as possible, and that modeling paste and these coffee bean stencils just, and the yellow actually, it's the yellow coffee beans, they just make my heart happy. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave me any comments or questions you've got down below, and if you want to keep watching, there's a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.